that collapsed in Nigeria.
For them that when you're going abroad, you must report where you are going to. And then we are very fortunate that as a country, that these people who were there, they went there for peaceful purposes, whereby they went to the church to go and pray, whatever. That's very good. You know? But when you look in other countries, Chair, people go and involve themselves in the foreign wars, which are not of that country. So I think that the issue of people reporting, the South African citizens reporting, is something which we must really consider as this portfolio committee, that we must make it mandatory that the people must report where they are going to, so that they don't involve themselves with the wars which the country is not involved in. And then number two, Chair, I think that as this portfolio committee, I think that we must instruct even our department to send our condolences to the people of Nigeria as a whole, because this is a tragedy of mass proportions. As Comrade Kenya has just said right now, if you can look at the way that building collapsed, it's as if it was predetermined that, you know, just like these demolition jobs, because it fell at the same time, no, just like that. Usually, if it is the issue of the shoddy work, they usually hang on one side, whatever, but this one was suspicious. So on that polar regard, really will urge our government to support the government of Nigeria and the people of Nigeria to go to the bottom of this issue, so that at the end of the day, if there's anything suspicious, it must be eliminated. But really, we're with the people of Nigeria at this sad moment as our partners in the AU. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Kalyan.
Thank you, Chairperson. I take the point that the Deputy Minister has raised, and I would want to say that this falls within two departments. It's the Home Affairs. It's when you leave the country, your passport is stamped. And when you enter the country, obviously you're entering with a visa. That slip of paper is taken and kept behind. And it's a honorable thing to want everyone to clock in as to when they arrive at their destination. And it's good because it's in their interest and they would know, that there's support at the other end. However, would the missions be able to cope with this? Do they have resources and manpower? And where would they be situated? These are things that we would have to consider, because my thinking is you would want to have it at the airport, because the missions are usually, away from the airport in a secluded area, mainly because of security. So these are some of the things that need to be fleshed out before we can say it is mandatory. I think there are processes and procedures in place which at the moment are adequate, and I think immigration or section of Home Affairs needs to be involved in this. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kalyan. There are no further comments. Well, some comments actually sought clarity, particularly from Honorable Monsame, whether there's a center that could communicate information. I just got a document here that there is a registration of South Africans abroad. It's called ROSAT. Now, because it's just a piece of paper sent by the content advisor, I want to request her to speak to that. Where is it? Who to contact? Can you speak to that?
Thank you, Chairperson. Within DECO, under consular services, there is a mechanism for registration of South Africans abroad called ROSA. And that mechanism is meant for South Africans traveling abroad to register with the embassies, with all our embassies abroad. But there are challenges with regard to the fact that DECO cannot, their mandate is beyond the borders of South Africa. But within South Africa, there is need for collaboration between DECO and Home Affairs so that South Africans traveling abroad can be aware of this. The other challenge, Chairperson, is popularization of ROSA by both, I think, both the department and the missions abroad to make sure that South Africans are aware of this. And maybe it also falls under the oversight strategy of the committee to see how far they can enhance maybe popularization of this. The other thing is the willingness of South Africans themselves to actually comply with this requirement. But there is a system in place.
Yeah, I have heard you, but I didn't hear you saying the offices are at such a place, the contact person is such a person. Deputy Minister, you want to assist?
If I
Please.
may, Chairperson, yes, content advisor is quite correct. There is a DERCO website, it's called derco.gov.za, and you will be able to access ROSA via that website. Content advisor is also correct. There are challenges. We've been trying through our public diplomacy division to popularize this aspect, not with very much success. And tragically, it's these 67 deaths that may now force us to change our approach. Just to make the point, Chairperson, ROSA is an acronym for Registration of South Africans Abroad. The information in ROSA is only accessed by DERCO when an emergency occurs. And the emergency could be an illness, accident, arrest, and the collapse of the building in Nigeria. So there is that. It shouldn't be hard then to convey that information if somebody from your constituency or your province wants additional information. Of course, if they don't have access to the internet, then you would have to refer them to DERCO headquarters in Pretoria, and those contact details are easily available in the telephone directory. The Honourable Kalyan is quite correct. The question of capacity and resources is very relevant, and we need to look at that, as well as the content advisor and others have pointed out, collaboration between DERCO and Department of Home Affairs.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if I'm going to assist you, but Sbongile, and I'm talking about the male Sbongile. Sbongile Maput, shouldn't you get the website, the telephone number, the fax number of ROSAT, and then send it to that channel that is accessed by all commercial and public broadcasting structures, community radios everywhere, as long as they'll access that number there. Then it must say, the committee says if people travel over abroad, that includes Abantu Nigeria, something like that. At least it's tumele something there. Maybe it may assist. With regard to the matter raised by Honorable Kenya and later raised by Honorable Khatebe, at this stage, I would advise that perhaps we leave it to the Nigerian intelligence services. They may discover that the manner in which that building collapsed could be man-made. Well, it's even man-made because perhaps the capacity and architecture of that building was such that there was poor workmanship by the engineers. But if it's because of Boko Haram, they will also unearth that, and I think they'll be able to tell the world. Yeah, let's leave this matter at that and then latch into item number 4, briefing by the Department on African Union, Agenda 2063. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, you will remember that the minister requested, or the department through the minister requested, that a presentation should be made to a joint sitting of the House. And the programming committee proposed the 19th of September. And that date has since been changed to somewhere in October. We don't have a firm date. I spoke to the minister yesterday. She did not have a firm date because the determination of the date will be made by Parliament. But we felt that before that presentation to the joint sitting of Parliament is done on African Agenda 2063, the members of this portfolio committee must be walked through a presentation where they can have a very meaningful engagement, so that by the day it comes into the House, you are able, if for instance you are one of the speakers, you are able to engage in the debate in a very cogent manner. So we are very happy that the department has sent the Deputy Minister, who is responsible for this committee, Deputy Minister Lenders. Deputy Minister Lenders is going to give us a strategic contextual overview, and he will be ably assisted, and I'm saying ably, Sandile. Now, I may withdraw ably at some point if you don't do it well. He will be ably assisted by your good self, now Sandile Skalk. Sandile Skalk is dealing with Africa multilateral. So he's quite a competent person to speak to the subject. We'll then allow members to make an engagement with the subject, and then after that, we'll deal with the last item. I want to raise a weakness, though, from our side, Ninama officials. Where is Masebe? Because I thought I'll speak Akonala. He has moved out. Yeah. Those who have observed either him or you, or Onomaklosa, would know that you bring our documents very late, and you bring them in the morning, you bring them while the meeting is running, papers are being thrown to the members. And I think it's a very serious weakness. Maybe the chair has been permitting that. You know, honorable members are leaders of organizations and are members of their organizations. They must read so that they can debate in a very competent manner. So for them to be able to do all of these things, ask questions, do all of these things, they must be provided with the documents in time, at least a day before. And even a day before, it's not enough, but at least a day before, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 9 o'clock, the following day, by Batolama presentations. It's very, very important. I'll speak to Masebe about this weakness. Say correct. But maybe I'm taking things too far, but you know, a South African who might be speaking somewhere one day, we're going to speak in an international conference somewhere. You are representing, or you are the face of South Africa. And you can't go there. Well, you speak, oh, you can't be understood with what you're talking about. And we lower the image of the country because we speak, we're kind of empty as we speak there. So through sufficient and enough information and papers to us, Sifunde, so was a presenter, representer, either our organizations or our countries, anywhere within the country, in parliament and everywhere else. I want to weakness in a corner with I right, it can't be right. No cause. I'm a paper, so I'm telling his cat. Now will babalo. No Masebe. That's my instruction. Over to the Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, thank you. I'll also take this up with Masebe and look at ways at how we can ensure that this doesn't happen again. Chairperson, you've asked us to make a presentation and a briefing to this portfolio committee on Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 seeks to address a simple and yet fundamental question, which is, what kind of Africa would we like to live in the year 2063? Why 2063? Well, in 2013, Africa celebrated the 50th anniversary of the OAU. And in 2063, it'll be 100 years. Now, in 2063, some of us won't be here, myself included. But our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will be here. And so the question applies, whether you will still be alive in 2063 or not. And so what Sandile Skalk will be doing, Chairperson, is take you through the processes that have been followed thus far to get us where we are right now. As far as the department is concerned, being the lead department, we have engaged with civil society groups, amongst others, the youth. I was present at that particular meeting or conference of the youth in DIRCO's headquarters. Yesterday, I'm told DIRCO had an engagement with women, also at DIRCO headquarters. There's been an engagement with academics from a variety of universities, and the intention is also to engage with the business community and other civil society organizations. And they will all be making inputs into the concept of Agenda 2063, the Africa we would like to live in 2063. And so with those very few words, Chairperson, allow me to hand over to Sandile to take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Skalk.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, I take this opportunity to appreciate through the Minister, your invitation to us as technocrats to come and brief you on Agenda 2063. Chairperson, the Agenda 2063 stems from the meeting of heads of state and government that took place in May 2013. In May 2013 in Addis Ababa, the African Union commemorated the 50th anniversary. And it did so whilst taking into account the history, what has transpired over the last 50 years, looking at the achievements that were made. And on the basis of that, during the celebrations, then the heads of state and government signed a declaration, a solemn declaration. In the declaration, they identified 8 key elements. The 8 key issues that are outlined in the declaration, Chairperson, are 1, the African identity and renaissance. Secondly, the struggle against colonialism and the right to self-determination of people still under colonial rule. Thirdly, the integration agenda. 4, agenda for social and economic development. 5, the agenda for peace and security, democratic governance. 6, 7, determining Africa's destiny. And the 8th one, Chairperson, being Africa's place in the world. They discussed and agreed on this solemn declaration. On the basis of that, then mandated the African Union Commission to start working on a conceptual framework document projecting Agenda 2063. What they've given, the instruction that they gave was that they should look at, the commission should look at a plan, strategic plan for the next 50 years. On how Africa should build an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa. An Africa that is driven and managed by its own citizens and people, and an Africa that will be able to express itself fully and independently in the international arena. Upon this instruction, the chairperson of the AU convened a meeting in Senegal, a meeting of the African Development Bank, the meeting of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, as well as the other academics, international academics, African academics, and civil society organizations to start basically to work on a conceptual document on Agenda 2063. What then happened, the chairperson, they came up with a framework document, just as a concept framework document, with the view to then request, to then ask member states to look into it and see what inputs they can then bring. They then equally requested that the member states should then forward their national plans, like what we did in South Africa, the National Development Plan, to the AU, and then that will then be used to actually work on the conceptual framework document on Agenda 2063. What then means, chairperson, in the AU's approach, Agenda 2063 is an approach to how the continent should effectively learn from lessons of the past, build on the progress currently underway, and strategically exploit all possible opportunities available in the short, medium, and long term, so as to ensure a positive socio-economic transformation within the next 50 years. On the basis of that, chairperson, then the team of experts looked at the existing development plans. They looked at the Abuja Treaty. They looked at the Lagos Plan of Action. They equally looked at NEPAD and identified some of the key challenges facing the initial plans, NEPAD, the Lagos Plan of Action, the Abuja Treaty, whose challenges basically centered around the timeframes. Timeframes were not very clear. Two, the question of continuous evaluation was not really built into the initial plans. What they are seeking to do now with Agenda 2063 is to take into account all the weaknesses that have been identified in the previous plans and then ensure that Agenda 2063 then addresses those weaknesses. In doing that, chairperson, then the AU Commission worked on a development of what is called a popular version, Agenda 2063, that is the Africa that we want. It then identified 8 aspirations that are actually stemming from the key areas that have been identified in the declaration. For example, chairperson, aspiration 1 talks about a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. In other words, it is aimed basically at eradicating poverty and build shared prosperity through social and economic transformation on the continent. Aspiration 2, chairperson, talks to an integrated continent that is politically united based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of Africa's renaissance. It then traces the quest for African unity since 1963, which was basically inspired by the spirit of Pan-Africanism with a clear focus on the liberation, political and economic independence. It is equally motivated by the development based on self-reliance, self-determination of African people with democratic and people-centered governance. Aspiration 3, chairperson, talks to an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law. What is then envisaged there, chairperson, is a culture of good governance, democratic values, gender equality, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law. Under aspiration 4, it talks to areas with specific reference to peace and security. It envisages a peaceful and secure Africa based on the current work that is being done aimed at silencing guns by 2020. There are mechanisms in this respect, and the AU Peace and Security Council is inundated with the work of on addressing this question of silencing guns by 2020. Aspiration 5 refers to an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, values, and ethics.